Sincerely, though, Adria, thank you for taking the time today to chat with us, to share your story. I know that it's, Thanksgiving holidays where you are, and it's a pretty big deal in the US. So, again, really appreciate you taking the time to share everything you've been through, what you've been going through since starting into the migraine resilience method. And maybe I'll start with asking you to just share a bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I'm Adria Urick. I'm 46 and I live in the outskirts of Phoenix, Arizona, in a town called Peoria. I'm a dyslexia interventionist, so I work with kids age from kindergarten all the way up to high school, one-on-one, and I'm able to give the joy of, learning and language and reading to these kids who definitely struggle, have been told like that they're not good enough and stuff. So it's definitely more of like a confidence builder too. So that's what I do here. And I have a dog, not a little dog. She's 75 pounds, but yeah, so it's a great little life here in Phoenix.
Well, thank you. And again, another educator,
Mhm.
someone working with kids takes a lot of energy. And, especially if you're working with kids with learning disabilities and potentially, just more challenging and
Mhm.
frustrating for those kids. And obviously, you need a lot of patience.
Yes, yes.
And I know that you also work very long hours. And, to do that with any kind of pain, head pain, symptoms is a challenge. But I know that you're very committed to what you do
Mhm.
and you show up no matter what. But maybe now I'll ask you what kinds of things you were experiencing when we first met, how long had it been going on for you, and how it was affecting your life.
Yeah, so it my migraines really started like when I went to college. I was having really bad menstrual cycles, and um, my doctor thought it would be best for me to be put on birth control to kind of maybe regulate my periods and things like that, not knowing that at that time that I had any sort of endometriosis or PCOS or anything like that. So that's where it kind of started. And I feel like the hormone levels or whatever, in the birth control just immediately caused migraines. And at first, it wasn't like a connection of like, this is what was causing them, but that's just kind of like how it started. And then it just continued. It was kind of like a battle of like, what did I want more? Like relief from like these really extremely painful cycles or like the relief from the migraine. So it's kind of like, what do I, how do I treat both? So, and that's kind of how it started. I've been in education since about 2007 when I graduated. And so, definitely like dealing with migraines while you're teaching is extremely difficult. You'd work like 10, 12 hours a day. I would come home and basically just kind of like fall apart. Um, it was just really challenging to have like any sort of personal life. And so I kind of put that on the back burner because I was so focused on my career. And so what then eventually happened was I was definitely not eating correctly. I definitely had a lot of anxiety and challenges with my administration. So it was just a lot of stress and pressure, maybe undue I put on myself. Excuse me. But excuse me. But so then at one point, about like 2012, 13, I was about 20 to 25 a month. And that would be migraine, mostly severe. I would definitely have to go into dark rooms, definitely like ice packs, icy hot, of course, burning my skin, and a lot of hospital visits. And that's where they give you like the cocktail of Toradol, Benadryl, and Zofran, which allowed me to have a really great sleep. But then as soon as I woke up, like it never went away. So I would deal with, migraine pain for multiple days on end, not just like a 4 to 8 hour time and then it would go away. So that's where it kind of started. And then I like looked into different medications and different treatments. Um, at one point, I went to this Migraine Treatment Center of America, which was based out of Texas. And they wanted to implant like an electrode into my body with a battery pack to, kind of like give your brain some like stimulation. So that was $60,000 and I definitely couldn't afford
My
that.
goodness.
it
Oh
was
my
very
goodness.
invasive too. So yeah, that's
Well,
kind of
and you start entertaining those ideas though, right?
oh.
Especially when you're in that much constant pain.
Mhm.
And, from what I understand, you really didn't step away from your work almost ever,
Yeah.
even though you felt that
Mhm.
way. And you mentioned, go in the dark room, the icy hot. I mean, you do what you can in the classroom if you have to, but you can't go and lie in a dark room in the middle of the day. So you
Mhm.
really are pushing through things and probably feeling worse by the end of the day than you even
Absolutely.
were, right? And adrenaline and just having not feeling that you have a choice but to be on can really
Mhm.
take us so far. But then you pay for it at the end of the day and just even long term, right? And it sounds like there's a
Yeah.
combo of things that happened that initiated all for you. And now or have an idea of what things
Yeah.
contributed on top of the what initiated it all. But still very frustrating to try all those things and
Mhm.
be seeking help and going to doctors and the experts in that at the time. That's what almost every last person does is first
Yeah.
they go see their conventional practitioners. And I always say it's good to do that to rule things out. It's good for them to be a part of your healthcare team, but
Mhm.
as you're learning, that's not the full picture, and there are other things involved. So yeah, it's tough. I feel for you, all of those years having to go through that and to be doing
Mhm.
the type of work that you do and making a career change. I'm not sure if that led you into the line of work that you're doing now. Not that it's easier, but you're not necessarily in classrooms of kids or anything. You're working more one-on-one, but it's still
Yeah.
very demanding because you're having to move around all day long and be where you need to be at the right time,
For
right?
sure. Mhm. Yeah, that's for sure. Definitely it was uh definitely a change that was needed because I knew I was like basically killing my body with the amount of like over the counter plus like the injections, like anything I was trying, like it was just I just felt like I was just continuing to kill my stomach and my
Mhm.
liver and and that's where it kind of like I'm like I just need to change like it the day to day was just really hard. So yeah, that's where I made the career change. But it wasn't without a lot of stress and sadness and like the death of a
Mm.
career. So it was a mourning period too, which then of course increased like the amount of migraines because it was just a very stressful time. I walked away from a career. What am I going to do next? So
And would you say that it was mainly your health situation that led you to make that switch, or were there other factors involved?
no, I would say it was definitely a health thing. I I'm not sure. So at one point, when I was teaching, um, just the anxiety had really gotten to me, and I ended up passing out in front of my class.
Mhm.
It was really traumatic for them. They were older; they were eighth graders, but it was very traumatic. And I just knew at that time, like the amount of stress I was putting on myself, and just like the the internal feelings I felt and just like the pain daily, I just knew I needed to try something different. And I have an undergrad in business, but I knew that wasn't my passion. I knew I did not want to go back to a cubicle or business. I wanted to still work with kids, and so yeah, that's kind of what ultimately led me to my new position.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so you knew your environment would be different. That would be a bit easier, not big classroom, lots of kids, bright lights
Yeah,
necessarily. Um, or maybe a little bit more flexibility, although you work pretty, as I say, consistently and long hours, but that's good for you for like identifying that, making that change for yourself. As you say, it's
yeah,
not easy, especially if you do love what you're doing otherwise. But it is sad when I hear that people, because of their health situation, have had to
yeah,
make changes in their career and what they do, how they move about life because of that.
sure.
Um, but no, looking back, like we can't have regrets, right? That
Hmm.
things turn out the way they're meant to.
Yeah.
But do you want to go into any detail about any of the other health things that you had been dealing with that you now know likely have relationships with
Mhm.
what the migraine situation as well as the same underlying kind of root cause?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's really hard because when you deal with migraines, you think it's just migraine pain. You don't realize that it could be like other systems in your body working together. And that's what I never really knew, even after like, visiting neurologists and doing CT scans, MRIs, and things like that. In 2013, I discovered a massive tumor cyst on my right ovary. That was like really the catalyst of like, I knew something else was going on. So I ended up having major surgery to have that removed. I unfortunately lost my like right ovary and fallopian tube. Just a really hard transition. Wanting to have a family and things like that. Those are things like, I always felt like I wanted. Of course, I'm a teacher by nature, a nurturer by nature. And so, yeah, that was really hard. And then, moving toward, the 2020s, I still wasn't conceiving. And then at that time, like I did more tests and determined that I had like, PCOS, which was then determined that maybe I should do, a scope of my uterus and kind of have it scraped. And I did that also. And unfortunately, it didn't work out to be able to conceive because it just kept coming back. So, I mean, a lot of that can kind of play into like what's going on mentally with you too. And then that causes like migraines. So between like the stress of trying to, have a baby and then the stress of like my periods and things like that. And by that time, of course, I had gotten off the birth control but the headaches never really went away. And so, and then I struggle with anxiety too. And I think a lot of the anxiety is caused by like, when's my next headache going to come? What do I have to cancel? Who's going to be upset with me? So it's like it's a whole body system. And that's what I didn't realize before I started this journey.
Yeah, it really doesn't get talked about. We don't learn about it
Mhm.
in school. Um, Doctors certainly don't talk about it with their patients.
Mhm.
I even have some suspicions that doctors don't even know that the body systems talk to each other and that
Yeah.
they can be related. That's the only conclusion I can come to when they don't bring it up or talk or ask. They want you to bring one symptom at a time to an appointment. Like that's the conclusion I come to, and it might not be true, but that's the impression they give, which
Yeah,
isn't okay in my opinion, if they know differently. And if they don't know differently, what is going on, right?
for sure.
So, you know, it's helpful, right? As you know now, once you have an understanding of that, it is somewhat reassuring in a way.
Yeah.
Like it may at first seem a little more intimidating or daunting, but it also tells us, oh, that's why I haven't been able to find the answer yet, or
Yeah.
that's why I haven't been able to, these things I've tried haven't worked. Of course, like then now this makes sense.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned a few things that you would do then for the migraine stuff
Mhm.
specifically. And first, I want to say, um, I I'm sorry to hear about your journey and that you wanted to have children. You're going
Mhm.
through those motions of trying to figure out your health stuff so that you're able, and then instead you're getting kind of just these other like discouraging answers about what might be the problem may be and
Sure.
why it might be happening and interventions to try to correct things. And it's that must have been a really hard time and must be really hard. So yes, I'm sorry to hear about that. And
Mhm.
um, the intention when you realize though that with the migraines not getting better no matter what other shifts you had done and what other interventions you had done with the other health problems. Okay, the migraines are still there, headaches are still there, right? And there's daily
Mhm.
headaches too involved. It's not just,
Yeah,
well, it's a mix of the two. um, and taking a lot of medication that you can't you don't know what else to do. Of course you're going to take something if it's giving you some relief. But tell us a bit about the meds, as far as head pain and
yeah.
any other symptoms if you took meds for them too. What was that experience like, and how did you feel, taking
Well,
them?
the first time I went to a neurologist here in Phoenix, it was about 2011. Again, I went through the whole, and he was a really great, he was very highly recommended, right? And so I did all the scans and tests and everything came back normal, but of course, like they usually do, there's no tumors or anything like that. And luck, I mean, thank God.
Yeah.
So the first medication he put me on was Topamax. And I really didn't have a lot of information about it. And I didn't do my due diligence to like research it. I kind of just like took it because he was very reputable. And I think he was a generally good person
Mhm.
and wanted to support me. Over the next few years of being on Topamax, I realized like I was having a lot of more brain fog, and I felt like I was like forgetting words. And I can clearly remember, I mean, even like 11, 12 years ago, like having conversations with people and like being like forgetting words and feeling like I'm an educator. I'm supposed to be having like communication skills, like to talk, effectively with these parents. And I'm like losing my words and train of thought. And it just like, it scared me. I felt like I was like going like early Alzheimer's or
Mhm.
dementia or
Of
something. And
course.
so one of my students' parents, like I was telling her, because her son suffered from migraines, and she was just like, "Do you know what you're taking?" And I was just like, "Oh no." And then so it was like an epiphany, like, "Oh my goodness, like is this is not the medication." And so luckily, like after stopping it, it kind of like came back. I still feel like I have maybe some residual issues from it, but I did that, and I just felt like, what am I giving my body? But then like I just kept continuing. So then I would do, not mostly the preventative, but like the as needed, like the Nurtec or
Mhm.
um what else? Like the Amovig, like I did the monthly injections. Um yeah, I mean, anything that was like available, I would go to my doctor. She would give me samples. I would try the samples. And if they worked, they worked. And if they didn't, they didn't. Or they would work for a few times and then they didn't work for many times. And then like some of them you can only take like two a day. Well, that wasn't working. So then I was trying to take like four a day. And
Mm.
again, it was just like, what am I doing to the rest of my systems? Nothing was working. So, I tried chiropractic care. I have like TMJ. So I was like, maybe my jaw pain. So I went treatment for that. So yeah, it was anything that was available um, for them to give me, I tried. And whether
Yeah.
it was an injection or medication or topical, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I never got relief. I never got full relief. I never
Mm.
knew what the root cause was. It was like band-aiding, you know, a, a
Yeah.
break, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. And that seems like a pretty common story again. That's what the answers you'll get when you go the conventional route, which
Mhm.
no judgment on anyone who wants to find relief. And they are pegged to be the experts, and they are
Mhm.
experts in their own way, in their own realm. But it's what people don't always understand is they will provide, these are the things in their toolkits. It's going to be meds, surgeries, the diagnostic stuff for more significant things like brain tumors and that. It's great to rule those things out, of course, if it's suspected, but this is their realm of expertise.
Yeah.
But there's other options out there as far as angles to get at it. And in my humble opinion, like more effective ways for the majority of people that to tackle this problem. And so nothing wrong on you for doing these things, for following doctor's
Yeah.
orders, for following their advice. Now, I do recommend once people know they know, but always research, the side effects of meds, the possible
Mhm.
adverse events of meds, what can happen long term, how long they're supposed to be taken for, following how much you're supposed to take, like max dosage, but also where everybody is bio-individual, so your body may
Mhm.
react differently. And a lot of people do get, some people get great relief from these meds, others get none, and others it's partial. Either way, if it's partial or full, that's great. My and what you I know now believe is you still need to get at the root cause of the issue, whether you're taking meds that resolve things for you, your symptoms or not. It's still a good idea to go back in and figure out what's really going on. And that's where you started in. That's what happened in the end for you. And when I first met you, you were still taking some medication that was
Mhm.
somewhat effective for helping with the pain, the more major pain days, right? And
Mhm.
actually, you were taking it pretty regularly, I know, because you talked about the over-the-counter.
Yeah.
Was it called tension relief?
Yeah. I mean, I was a tension relief medication, just like I found it at Target. It's like the Up and Up brand.
Yeah, it's like acetaminophen and
And
caffeine.
right. And so
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I every day I would take it. And I had told you before, like, it's a red pill. And it's interesting because like I felt like as soon as the red pill like it like leaves like a like a color on your tongue, as soon as like the tongue like turned back to normal, I was like, gotta take another one because I felt like I knew it was gonna come back. And again, I was going through whole bottles. I mean, I think I can't even tell you how many pills are in a bottle. I mean, a whole bottle a month. And I would just stack up. They're like a couple bucks a box. I mean, they weren't
Hmm.
expensive um,
Like
like
the
the
prescription meds.
yeah,
Yeah.
migraine or anything. And let's talk about the cost. I mean, overall, the
Mhm.
cost and how much money I spent over the years on all these treatments. I mean, I'm a teacher, and so I don't have good health insurance either. And so, and at the point that I changed careers, I didn't have health insurance because I was an independent contractor. So now my health insurance is just like, hope I don't get sick,
Yeah.
um, which is unfortunate. It's just our system here, our healthcare system is just expensive, and even
Hmm.
the plans they don't help. A lot of the supports and um, programs I tried, they weren't even covered by insurance, so it was all out of
Yeah.
pocket.
Yeah. It's the same here in
Mhm.
Canada. The things that are covered aren't necessarily, they're not going to be the things that get at the root cause. Um, yeah. And that's ironic, right? You left your career because of your health issues, and that's where you
Mhm.
had better coverage for things.
Yeah,
You had to leave that because of your health, but then you ended up in a place where you had to end up spending more in pocket for your health because you
for
lost
sure.
that
Hmm.
coverage. That's hardy. I didn't think about that. I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
So good to get rid of the pills that leave red dye on your tongue.
I know.
And I know you shared that only recently. I didn't know about
Yeah.
that, about your experience, and just
Hmm.
that's so interesting, that once your tongue was constantly red because you would be taking the next pill, once the red wore off, you knew, okay, this is when the pain will usually
Yeah.
resume or get worse again. I'm going to need to take another pill. It's time. And then with the icy hot, I just remember that standing out for me when we first met, is you were telling me that it would provide some relief. So you were putting it on your forehead constantly and it was burning your skin. You had to use
Yeah,
so much of it.
absolutely. It says like only, put it on 1 to 2 times a day or something. I was in so much pain, I didn't even care. So I had like burn marks like up here and then on my neck over in here because I just needed relief. And if
Yeah.
it gave me 10 minutes of relief to like be able to function for those 10 minutes, like, that's what I would do. And that was prior to like understanding oils and how oils can help too, like the
Hmm.
essential oils.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I'm so happy that now you're able to turn to things that aren't going to
Yeah.
be hurting you, helping you in one way, but hurting you in another. Because that's
Hmm.
what so many of the more conventional things end up doing, right? They're helping in one way, but then they're causing harm or damage
Absolutely.
in another way. And
And
that's no
yeah.
fun.
And again, like not anything I was doing or taking, it was definitely way over the, approved amount for the day. So what does
Hmm.
that do to your body?
Yeah. So not for lack of trying, you were doing all the things. And, you mentioned even some of the more alternative things like chiropractor.
Mm-hmm.
And, you sound like someone who's open to anything. It's
Mm-hmm.
just sometimes it's like what's presented in front of us. What options do we think we have, right? And that's where maybe you didn't know. And then at one point, though, you and I connected, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe if you don't mind sharing a little bit about what had you decide to work with me inside of the migraine resilience method.
Okay, well, I had done not naturopathic care before, but I did meet with somebody and she prescribed, butter, burr, feverfew, and magnesium and things
Hmm.
like that, supplements, and I tried them and it didn't work for me. So I was just like, okay, another, 100, $200, like, down the drain again, essentially, right? And so somehow I got connected with your Facebook page, and I'm not really sure how or when or why, but I feel like it was a blessing from God. And I kind of sat on the backtrack for like a year, and I would get the messages and read people's, testimonials and things. And it was interesting. It was a lot of like people who worked in my profession or professions that, serve others and things like that.
Mm.
That was really interesting to me. And so I don't really know. I just felt like a push of like something needed to change.
Mhm.
And it was one of the posts that you had posted about just like, are you ready? Like, basically, are you ready? Like, are you ready to feel different? And I, of course, like, maybe rolled my eyes and like, okay, like something else. And I was like, okay, how much is this going to cost? Because that's my initial thought. Like, it's just like, I just throw money out and with no relief. And, I had told you about a woman I know that she had had major surgery to like, to kill a nerve essentially. from her migraine pain. And
Mhm.
I didn't want to be like that. I didn't want to be like doing all of this conventional medicine, like all this stuff that I was, taught to do my whole life. So yeah, I just like finally just said, okay, let's do our meet and greet and talk, and then like let's see what we could do. I mean, that's basically how it happened. But for a year, I kind of stood back and said, like, well, let me see what I want to do, or how I feel like I'm gonna get this. I feel like it's just gonna go away. By
Yeah.
prayer or power, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Well, I'm so happy that you did make that decision because it
Mhm.
has worked out nicely. And maybe, you know, share your experience now of the transformation of, how you feel now, but maybe starting in with, I know that within weeks there was a blip that we will talk about, but
Yeah.
there was also a point where you knew that things are starting to improve. And it's kind of been a nice for you because it doesn't always go that way. There can be, more hilly travels for people, but for you, it's been a pretty consistent upward progression in
Mhm.
improvements. But yeah, maybe share how things went once you were in the program.
Yeah. So, I mean, being like a part of other migraine like Facebook groups and stuff like that, the one thing I noticed all the time was like, what works for one person is not going to work for somebody else, right? And that's why like I would try everything just to see. And then
Mhm.
of course I kind of gave up. And I was like, if I'm going to do this and put this investment in, I have to try. I'm not going to just let it be like something that's like on the back of my mind. So I really kind of like pushed myself. And let me say, in the beginning, it was hard, just because like you have like the angel and the devil, the angel saying like you can do this, and then the devil's like, well, you tried everything else before
Mhm.
and it never worked. So in the beginning it was just like, okay, I have to do all this stuff and these documents and like videos. But then like I think it's overall, Julie, just you, like your consistency. You show up for me every day, you answered every message and email, text, anything I sent you. You like walked beside me, and that was something I never had seen before or felt before. So that was like a game changer, that like, oh my gosh, she's like really available. Because when you first kind of start, you're like, okay, well, you get like 3 meetings with me, like 3 one-on-one meetings, and I'm just like, oh, okay, like what if I have a question? But then like it was like, wait, we also have like weekly groups every week that we can kind of talk, and you can hear from others. And I was just like, wait, so I'm like invested in this like with somebody. And then I was like, of course, my whole thing was like, I'm in Phoenix and you're in Canada. How are we going to work? Like, how is this going to work? Right. And so there's a lot of like anxiety and I mean, everything. So, but I would say like the platform that you've created and the website with the videos, it makes it so simple to kind of like go through the program and do like your one action for the week. And then you kind of like feel like success. It wasn't like all at once and that you have to do everything. Like it was like step by step. And it was like understanding my body for the first time in a way that like I never understood, and nobody ever talked to me about it and all like the different parts of it. And that's kind of like where it started. And it wasn't like, okay, well, you have to buy all these supplements and all these changes and make all these dietary changes. It was like, okay, step one, like let's do this first. Like let's talk about like what, A, B, and Z, right? And I can't remember in the order of like the videos and things like that, but it was step by step, and it was very organized in just your voice, and like your encouragement, like in those videos was just like, or the sounds.
The audios, yeah.
Yes, yeah, yes. It was just like reaffirming like
Yeah.
that you were genuinely invested and interested. This was not like about making money for you. Like this is like
Mhm.
you knew that this was affecting like millions of people, and how are you gonna like make a difference and change in people's lives? And that's like kind of where I felt like she's like really invested in me. Like she really wants this for me. And so that's kind of like where it just started. And for me, like I'm a pleaser by nature anyway. So gosh, it makes me tear up. But I'm a pleaser by nature. And so it's just like I want to please her too, like and make sure that I'm showing up. And so that's what I did too. I just made sure that I was showing up. And then I would say like for the first few weeks, it was showing up for you. And then finally there was a shift that was like, wait, this is really working. And in the beginning, I had like a 9 day migraine. Oh my goodness, a nine day migraine episode. And let me tell you, that was really hard because like that was a point of like, this is not going to work. Like, what am I going to do? Like, this is, and it was a bad one too, like 9 full days. no relief. And I'm just like, what, like, come on. And then, but you were there every step of the way, like giving me tips and things to try and what I could do. And I just like pushed through it. And my goodness, like if after that ninth day, I mean, I think I went 6 weeks or 5 or 6 weeks without one migraine. I mean, my whole adult life struggling every day, and just to have one, and now being almost 10 weeks in, or 10 weeks of no my oh well one migraine, that's it. And even the daily headaches and the just the daily anxiety and pain. I'll give you a situation. So here's my pill bottle, right? This is full of my like my medicines, because I have to have them. I have to have them. It's like a comfort, right? Well, yesterday I forgot them on Thanksgiving, and I know like 10, 12, 15 weeks ago, I would have to turn around and go home. Like we literally got to the house, and it was like 40 minutes away, and I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot my medicine. And then like normally the anxiety would kick in, and
Yeah.
not even for a minute. I was just like, oh, I'm like good. Like I never experienced that before. So for me, it was just like learning my body, learning what my body was deficient in, and in like filling my body with like the nutrients that it was supposed to have all along, knowing that I was holding on to so much excess weight because I was severely under eating, and eating like just not eating what I like had done like my whole life, but it just wasn't working now. And as your body changes, like it was just a lot.
Yeah.
It was just a lot of yeah, just needed to like work through the program and show up. And that was the two biggest things, like to show up and like really, really do the program as it's intended. And it worked. It worked for me.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing all that with us, Adria. And I always say this, I wish I could like reach through the screen and give you a hug.
One day,
That's
it's
the
gonna,
only downside of, having the privilege of being able to work virtually and therefore being able to support people that don't that live outside of my city and where I am. That's obviously there's pros and cons because we can't be interacting more closely and close in proximity. But um, yeah, you definitely have from the start. It was very clear that you were committed. And like you said, your type of personality and the way that you are, a lot of us migraine people are people pleasers. And
Mhm.
a lot of migraine people I find are um, perfectionists or, high achievers, type A personalities, like don't want to let other people down though, for the most part, and
Yeah.
carers and nurturers. And maybe that is why a lot of those who I end up working with are people that work in professions that are helping others and tend to put others before themselves, but also intelligent and like know a lot about I need to look after myself in order to look after
Mhm.
others. But it's just the how. How does this work then? And why am I in this position? What do I need to do to get out of it? And that's what you kind of put your trust in the process from the start. And that's what really works is when you put the trust in, you show up, hold yourself accountable. And like you say, at first it was about pleasing me. And this is where that support system that when it's a close-up follow, like more regular follow-ups and frequent touch-ins, it's helpful because not only can that person again depending on how many people they're working with at once, which this is why I limit it, is that I do want to know your situation inside and out. I want to get to know you as a person and get to know your history, but especially your current situation, and then be flexible and adjust and provide the recommendations according to that, not just a standard protocol. Even the alternative world can rely on protocols, off the shelf protocols, a little too heavily instead of, that personalized medicine or personalized
Mhm.
suggestions, right? But you had so much enthusiasm from the start. And the accountability piece, yes, having somebody to please or hold you accountable is
Yeah.
a huge part for people. Even people that
Yeah.
say, once I know what to do, I do it, I follow through. That's true, but it does have its limits. Sometimes it's too easy to kind of give it up or, revert back to old habits if you don't have that person not only holding you accountable, but reassuring you that you are doing the right thing. Even though
Mhm.
you have this like 9 day stretch of migraine, don't give up on the
Yeah.
process. Don't lose sight of this. I gave some ideas for what could be happening in those moments. Like, you know, it's unfortunately with any chronic situation, any kind of disease, syndrome, health issue, it's often not, you know, this is what's causing this in this moment. Like
Mhm.
it's not, it can be an accumulation of factors. It can be the stacking of things. It can be, you know, that migraine threshold, that result, like that stressor barrel filling up. It can be that, but it can also be the detox issue and okay, what can we do to make this gentler? We never want to have one of those blips where it's like
Mhm.
things flare up. We ideally want to avoid that, but it can happen. And so that's where I'm glad that you know, were open to listening to those rationales and
Yeah.
the encouragement to just keep at it the best you can. Okay, now let's adjust and work on these things. You will get through this. And you did. And it was fantastic because, like you say, in the end, you've had now such a long stretch,
Yeah.
virtually migraine free and with
Mhm.
far fewer headaches. And it sounds to me then like you're also taking much less medication. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
To
Hmm.
the point where you forgot your pill case and
I know, and I
and you
didn't.
weren't really that bothered by it. That's
No,
when you know you've like
yeah,
gotten over that hurdle.
the anxiety of before would have been like I would have created a migraine just
Mm,
for stress alone of not of forgetting that medicine
mm,
yesterday.
mm.
Hmm.
Yeah, but you're much more reassured because you have that confidence because even that one migraine that you have had in the last 10 weeks, you mentioned it didn't drag on for days. It was,
No,
you know, you managed it.
yeah,
It didn't escalate to the extent that it might
right,
have
normally.
otherwise,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah,
And you are a little bit maybe on the a little under the weather today, like or this week, right? Like you had something going on anyways in your
yeah, just
system.
full disclosure.
No
Yeah,
migraine and no
no,
migraine, right? And it's not like
mm-mm,
the headaches are worse when the migraine
no,
situation came back. That's
nothing, like
huge.
even nothing,
That's
especially like when
huge.
you have that sinus pressure.
Hmm.
It's definitely somebody who, when the sinus pressure hits, like kind of just goes to the head and head
Hmm.
fog and the head. Nope, nothing at all. Like it's literally like I don't want to say miracle, but like I've never my whole adult life. I mean, we're talking years, 26 years, I think, like
Wow.
without ever like for going. I mean, like honestly, it would be a whole month, like 2 months, right? Essentially migraine free, which I've never in my life have had.
Well, I'm so, so happy for you. I'm so happy for your results. I don't ever want to say someone deserves it more than others. Like that's never the case, but you
No, no,
definitely put the effort in. You put you were committed to the process, committed to yourself. And this is what I hope for people that do that at the very least is they're getting the results, right? When they're going in like that. So yeah, it's just it makes I do take these situations very personally and I do,
yeah.
you know, like you say, I'm walking alongside you. I'm there every day if you need me to be to answer
Mhm.
questions, to reassure, to give you ideas if something's not going well or nothing not working. I know you had to troubleshoot how you were going to eat every day.
Yeah.
How are you going to eat more? Because of your job situation, it was a challenge, but we figured it out, right? We came up to some pretty creative solutions. You
Mhm.
actually put forward ideas, which again, I really appreciated because I didn't even have to suggest to you that you think it through. Because as the person doing the work, you have ideas, often the best ideas for your own situation, but sometimes it can take that, you know, a little back and forth, the brainstorming session to figure things out. But you did, like you made it work. You made sure instead of putting up the excuses or all of the reasons why I
Yeah.
can't implement, it was okay, I can shift this or I can do this for now. And
Mhm.
you know, and that's everything. That's amazing. And that's in my opinion, the reason that you are where you are right now. And I'm just so happy for you because it couldn't happen to a better person. Like, you know, you're it's a pleasure working with you week to week. Like it's been
Mhm.
such a joy. And I know I keep using the word like enthusiasm for you. It's true. The way that you put a smile, even when you're still in a lot of pain, you're always coming
Mhm.
with a smile, which not that I promoting that everyone who's in pain walk around with a smile and pretending, but I do find that again, a lot of the women I work with,
Yeah.
these perfectionists, high achievers, there you wouldn't know these people are
Yeah.
in significant pain day to day because they're so keen on appearing like things are okay to not make other people feel uncomfortable. It's
Sure.
almost like you want other people to and in your position, like position of your leadership or your teaching, or you don't want to show your vulnerabilities, or you don't want to put that on other people. It's like you take it on your own shoulders and think, this is my problem. I just have to push through and deal with it. And that's
Yeah.
hard in itself. And that's something that I could see that you did and can do very easily, which yeah, has its pros and cons, obviously, but now you don't have to pretend anymore, which is a nice thing,
Right.
right?
Well, yeah, I'm like working with, I mean, people's most prized possessions, which is their children, right? And if they, for one instance, remember, they're paying a lot of money for our services, it's not
Mhm.
covered by like insurance. It's not, I mean,
Mm.
it's pocket mostly. And if I made them feel for one little inch or second that I wasn't up to the task of like remediating their child, they would pull me, out, or they would, have concerns if they knew for even an instant that like I wasn't feeling the best or not on my A game. Because I mean their sessions every hour are, I mean, not cheap. And
Yeah.
so I couldn't let it show. I couldn't.
Mhm.
And so that's why I had to come out with,
Yeah.
a smile. And that's when you break down at the
Yeah.
end of the day.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's not fair, right? To yourself. That's not fair that, you know, it's like we say even about kids who hold it in all day at school, like
Yeah.
they might have big emotions, or they might have mean thing like unpleasant things happening all day long at school, but they're holding it in because they don't feel safe to let it out, to cry or to be angry and then they come home and they throw their tantrum or
No,
they get
no.
upset, and
I
it's
hear
like,
it all the time. All the time I hear that.
yeah.
The
But
same.
adults, we don't have the same empathy for ourselves, or we don't feel like
Right.
we're allowed so much. But anyways, I'm very happy to know that you don't have to do that anymore so much. Like
No.
it's really changed. Things have really, really, really shifted for you. Are there any other things that you wanted to mention as far as, any top symptoms you noticed have shifted and improved? And we are still working on a few things for you with regards to digestive health, which usually has some part to play in people's migraines and their migraine episodes. We know so we are still working on, gut
Mhm.
balance for you and digestive health. Um, but yeah, are there any symptoms that you wanted to mention as far as improved? Your scores certainly improved when we did your scores
Yeah.
for these body systems, right?
For sure, I would say definitely. I mean, another thing that would, of course, is like a major side effect is nausea. I mean,
Mm.
just the nausea, the dizziness, and just feeling overall like, that you're not doing well. I definitely
Mhm.
would say that that definitely has shifted. I don't have to take Zofran anymore, where I was taking it all the time for my
Mm.
nausea. I think the water intake has definitely changed so much. I feel like my skin is clean, like, healthier, and just like overall like awareness now. I don't feel like uncomfortable talking to people. I still kind of felt like, when you have a migraine, you're just so focused on the pain, and you're just like, what
Yeah.
did I say? What am I telling this person?
Mm.
And just like, the forgetfulness and things like that. Like I feel like mine is more like a mental clarity. And definitely like, not dealing with like the side effects of the gut stuff, the constipation and things like that, which I didn't even know I had. I mean, again, like, I mean, I didn't even know that was a problem for me. I've always been the same type. So yeah, I would just say it's mostly like, for me, what I've noticed is that part, and that part to me is like the most important, because like my mental clarity and my ability to communicate is definitely like my career. So that has been the biggest shift. And just feeling like, things are flowing better too. But yeah, that's what I would say for sure. Like those few things have been like game changers for me.
Amazing. Well, that's when we're taking the root cause approach, that is what happens. And that's the goal. And again, you've done amazing. And is there anything else that, no, I'm losing my voice. Is there anything else that you wanted to share about, your experience in the program, what you enjoyed the most about it, or even um, in terms of, what you would recommend to anyone else who is in the same position that you were when you started?
Mhm.
What would you say to somebody about the program and who's dealing with that situation? They're dealing with a lot of symptomatic days.
For sure. Yesterday I had the opportunity to talk to someone who she's about 15 days a month of migraines, and she had her tragus, is that the tragus piercing and things? Is that what it's called? Something like that.
Days?
The Dagus piercing.
Oh,
Yeah.
there's a days piercing.
Oh, Dave. Yeah, she has her
Or
piercings,
it's
but like,
okay.
it's still not
Oh
helping
my.
like
Yeah.
that. Again, like
Yeah.
I kind of like shared what I know, and I have another friend too, and I just like I kind of feel like I have a lot of answers.
Mm.
And that's been like the biggest like epiphany. Like I just feel like I know my body and myself more than I ever have before. So I'm able to share my experience. I would say like you're not a I was definitely like very skeptical, of course. The cost is not terrible, not like that. But like for me, it's like a single person in terms of like, I only work when I get paid when I work, it's
Mm.
just a lot of money that I had to like think about like, is this worth it? And yeah, and just like the overall like anxiety of like, is it gonna work? Was definitely hard. I mean, anyone coming through is going to be like, I've tried everything. Like, why is this going to work? And so I'm just like everyone with the feeling of like skepticism, essentially.
Skepticism. Yeah.
And yeah, and it definitely changed. And the last thing I want to say is like I've worked with so many professionals. I mean, thinking about the chiropractic care, the neurologist. I've worked with a personal trainer. I did weight loss, centers and things like that. But no one ever in that whole series of like different pieces ever worked in unison to kind of come with like the whole body care.
Hmm.
And that's what you provided to me. Like it wasn't just like a one-stop shop. I mean, it is because like it's a one-stop, but it wasn't like I was dealing with this part, this system, this system. It was like everything worked together. And I think for me, like that was the biggest game changer, that you're not asking me to go to all these different, treatment centers or, providers. It all was here and presented here. And I just needed to show up, and everything was done. You do it so well, and it's just like making these little changes. So for me, it was just like, I mean, all these people who deal with migraines, they're going to all these places. And this is the only thing that like was consistent to help me like realize like, you have to think about your anxiety in your brain. You have to think about the pain. You have to think about your water intake and your food intake. I mean, I was going to all those professionals for those things. And now it's just like in one 16-week, session, essentially, it all changed.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for, I'm sure that your messages and your experience is going to help a lot of people, anyone listening to this who may be in a similar situation. And it is true. It's very helpful to have things kind of, what I like to say is that I provide the need to know information,
Mm-hmm.
and you are asked to do the things that are crucial for you to be doing for you in your situation. It's not a make work project. It's not like I'm asking you to do all of these random things just
Mm-hmm.
because, it's part of a protocol. It really is customized, right, from the start.
Yeah.
And that's probably what I hear the most from people is what they appreciate is just when you're in pain, when you're dealing with, your work life or your home life, and then on top of that, the daily symptoms and the worry and the anxiety and all that, you don't have a whole lot of headspace left or mind time and luxury to be thinking through problems or uh, you know implementing complicated things or learning for the sake of
Mm-hmm.
learning. It's like, no, just tell me what to do. But
Yeah.
of course, I'm also educating to the extent of enabling people to feel that intrinsic motivation to actually take the action. Because if you're just told to do something, it's great. If it's the right thing, I mean, that's fantastic, fantastic in itself. But if you don't really understand why, you might still not really implement it. Or if you feel like this is just a generic thing, it's not really meant for
Yeah.
you, you might not implement it. So that's kind of a difference maker that, from what I'm hearing you say, is something that really helped. And
You definitely, I mean, all my kids, we have to tell them the why, right? In education,
mhm.
it's the biggest thing. Why do I need to know this? And that's the biggest thing. You helped us, with the why and like how to support whatever topic we were doing. And the great thing
Yeah.
that you do is like you give one action task for a whole week, And anyone can find a time in their day, in 1 week, to do that action task and kind of like see about like, little changes. And then I forgot to even mention like the exercise component, you know what I mean? Like getting out and walking and things like that. Like you helped with that too. It's just like little things, like one little change a week. And then you just kind of like start implementing them and you're like, oh, all of these together is doing great. And then you feel good. And so that's what it's about.
Yeah, and it is like you say, it's doable. It sometimes it is a couple things and at a time, but it's never a couple really intimidating, daunting, big things at a
No.
time. Like if I am asking for several things, it's like, okay, let's keep working on this or improve on
Mhm.
this, like shift it slightly, and let's layer this other thing on.
For
If
sure.
if a person is not ready to layer on, they're just still ready to improve on what they're already doing. That's what we
Mhm.
do, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And it's determining the most important things for that person in this time that matters. And yes, you showing up and you doing it, and you really listening and being receptive. I mean, as a teacher, you know you appreciate that from your students, and
Mhm.
so you know how to do it well. But like you say, you learned a lot about your own body, and that's the real magic in this too. Is having people understand how the body works, how their own systems work, what they like, what they respond well to, and then you can become your own little detective or
Sure.
troubleshooter when it comes down to it. Otherwise, you'll need to go seek support again with any small thing that comes up. But when you leave the 16 weeks, you actually know a whole lot
Mhm.
more than the average person about how the body works and what different types of symptoms might mean for you and what you might need to do to what adjustments you might need to make to change
Yeah.
it.
The greatest thing is like the weekly calls. I mean, that literally was a game changer too for me. When I first started having, being able to listen to people who were like at the end of their program
Mm.
and like their experiences. And now I'm at the end of my program and being able to hear like others' experiences, and by all means, like you can tell them like, this is going to work. Like, not promise, but like, I guarantee you'll feel some result of some sort. Right. I mean, you're going to tell them that because it's your role. Right. But for me, like to come on and be able to like share my experience to them, like I feel like I'm doing my service too, just like as you instilled in me. Like they're hearing it from me, like somebody who was in their position, like literally like feeling like, am I going to live the rest of my life? Like I don't think I can live the rest of my life like this. And now I'm like able to like, tell them like, I'm telling you, please just stick with it. It's something is going to change. And I don't know, that's just so cool for me because I feel like how was I going to be like, helping or supporting or mentoring somebody else, like, and that's like my way too, like to help them. I mean, from hearing from two people, you and I, like like let's do it. Like let's get on, like what can we do?
Yeah, love that attitude. And it was, and I really appreciate that you are and were so open with sharing with others your experience and encouraging them, right on that call, really encouraging
Mhm.
them like this is going to work for you. You're going to do amazing, listen to what I experienced
Yeah.
and this can be what you have too. And it does go a long way to hear it from people that have been through it. It's
Yeah.
different when I know that a lot of doctors that work with their patients or
Yeah.
practitioners, like they haven't experienced the particular health issue that their patient is experiencing. So there's that slight disconnect, even if they're, you know, caring, like wonderful, caring and supportive people, it's still not going to be quite the same as someone who has felt that level of pain or hopelessness or frustration, discouragement, whatever it might be. There's a difference there. So thank you for sharing your story. Is there anything else that you wanted to share before we sign off today?
Really is, I mean, like I'm telling you, like I feel like you've changed my life. You've given me like a reason to like live and kind of like feel who I always wanted to be. And that's like the hardest
Mm.
thing because like I just never in my wildest dreams like thought this was gonna work or that this is where I would be after, the time. And man, I just like there's just a million things I could say to you, but like you, I mean, really changed my life. Like, and I mean that from like the bottom of my heart. Like I, I'm like a whole new person, and then I just feel like I've got my spirit and not a fake spirit either. And that's what it was. It was like I feel like I have a genuine like spirit. And being able to give myself like through volunteering now, which I was never able to do because I'd have to cancel, and just things like I always wanted to do. I just couldn't, I couldn't commit. And it's just like that's just like the game changer for me. So I mean, you put together a beautiful program for people like me, that are just desperate for clean, knowledgeable, like healing. And so I just like, I mean, I'll be forever in your debt, like for what you did for me. So I really, truly, like, honestly, like, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Adria. I am so, so, so happy for you.
Yeah.
And everyone deserves to feel like the person they are meant to be and to
Yeah.
live the way that they envision for themselves. So I really hope that those who need to hear your message receive
Yeah.
it. And no matter who they end up turning to support, it's like get support and
Yeah.
ideally find someone that can help you with that root cause approach and really be there with you every step of the way because that goes far. And yeah, I've enjoyed working with you, Adria.
Yeah.
Like I say, enthusiasm and commitment all the way, and such a wonderful, lovely person who
Oh,
I know
thank
helps
you.
others. And I know you are helping others in your life, family, friends, and your students day in, day out. So you deserve
Yeah.
this. And yeah, let's keep going, right?
I know for sure. It's not the end. So
Well, enjoy the
thank
rest
you.
of your Thanksgiving long weekend,
Thank you.
and I know we'll see you tonight on the
Yeah.
call, and we'll be in touch. I'm sure we will stay in touch long past your time in the program
I,
because
I
yeah.
agree. Whatever I could do for you, man, I will. Like I said, I'm indebted.
Well, if ever we're taking a trip to or Arizona, I'll I'll knock on your door.
Thank you so much, Julie. Truly, thank you. It was a pleasure to do this, and I'm so grateful that you did this because now I can like, even people can hear, the journey. It's not easy. It's not, but it wasn't difficult. You know what I mean? So
Oh, well, thank you so
thank
much,
you.
and we will be in touch. Bye,
Okay.
Adria.
Bye. Thank you.